So if I want to describe the harmony of this moment, what is the one note that I have to be sure and reference at least some of the time? Hey there, this is just a quick video about things you can play over chords, or specifically, really one note in any chord that's very, very important, or that you understand the importance of. And I want to apologize before I go further if I've given this video some sort of hypey or hyperbolic, is that the right term? Hyperbolic title? But in order for people to see anything apparently on YouTube now, you need to title it something like the one note you must absolutely play if you want to sound like a real jazz musician, some nonsense like that. So I hope you found the video, but I wanted to make this because I end up answering versions of this question a lot. I wanted to have something I could point to. So this came up as a matter of context with a student in my online teaching studio, and he was saying, I remember that I can play minor pentatonic over the dominant chord, i.e., or for example, I can play D minor pentatonic over D7. And that statement is both correct and incomplete, and I want to talk about why that is. So first, a quick story. I was in college, Berklee College of Music, many, many years ago, and a friend and I were talking about the blues, the 12-bar blues. Specifically, we were talking about the 8th bar of the blues. Okay, so here I've written and pointed with an arrow to that 8th bar of what ends up being the turnaround. So 9, 10, 11, 12 bars of the blues. Here's our jazz turnaround, 2, 5, 1, okay? Infinite amount of things can be written in the blues, or, whatever. The blues can be structured with a lot of stuff, a lot of different ways, but here's a pretty common way in jazz. So we're talking about this measure. So if this is 2, 5, 1, this means 5 of 2, dominant of the 2 chord. So the discussion I was having with my friend is, yeah, well, on that chord, in that measure, what's the one note that you absolutely have to reference in your playing, especially if you're playing by yourself, a cappella, without accompaniment? And I'm speaking as a saxophonist, as a person who's playing or improvising one note at a time. So if I want to describe the harmony of this moment, what is the one note that I have to be sure and reference at least some of the time? And my friend goes, oh, the sharp 11. And we laugh about it now, but it's funny because the sharp 11 it's like a hip seasoning you could add to the meal. But without this other note I'm going to talk about, got to keep you watching. Without this note I'm going to talk about in just a moment, are you still watching? You wouldn't have a meal to season. So let's take the chord D7, like my friend referenced here. Can you play D minor pentatonic over it? You absolutely can, and it sounds wonderful. It sounds nice and bluesy. Not the full blues scale, but bluesy enough. So here's the thing. If we back out of this chord a little bit, if I played just the root, what do we know about this chord? Do we know anything? Not much. If I add the 5th in there, what do we know now? Well, it sounds like a power chord. But do we know if it's major or minor? We do not. If I add the 7th, in this case a dominant 7th, we have some more information. We know it's not major 7. It has a dominant 7th, but is it minor 7 or dominant 7? We don't know because the 3rd is not there. So until I add the 3rd, spoiler alert, this is the note, the 3rd. The 3rd tells us whether it's major or minor. Minor, major, or suspended. So can you play D minor pentatonic over D7? Yeah, like we just did. It's cool. But if you don't, as a person playing one note at a time, like a saxophonist, if you don't reference the 3rd, you don't get from that information from D minor pentatonic, you don't get that it is a dominant sound. So once we include both the 3rd and that minor 3rd up top, now we have a cool relationship. We have the interval of a major 7th inside of a dominant chord that gives us some really nice tension. But if we don't play the 3rd, it just sounds like a minor chord. Okay, so the 3rd is the important note. So going back to this idea of the blues here, here's the example. If we were just, in the key of whatever key, your key of C, and the turnaround is D minor, G7, C, well then this secondary dominant, A7, is the dominant of D. C sharp is the note that's going to be the leading tone. That's the thing. The third of a dominant chord is the leading tone of the key you're in or the chord you are dominating. Hence the title, the name of the chord, dominant. So in the key of G, the dominant chord D, the third of the dominant chord is the leading tone to the 1. Okay, so if we have a secondary dominant, A7, it's the leading tone of D, and then F sharp is the leading tone of G, and it just keeps going like dominoes, okay? So the third is the note that I just want to say. So then have all the fun you want with all sorts of other things. It's great, but the third is what tells us whether a chord is major or minor. The next most important note is the 7th, because that tells us whether the chord has that dominant element present, or if it's more like if it's a 6th or a major 7th and it's at rest, etc. I just want to focus on the third and the importance of the third. So I hope that makes some sense. D7 with D minor pentatonic. Great. But if you take that third out, it's just D minor 7th. So what's the note that you need? What's the note that's important? It's the third. It's the third. Pay attention to the third of any and every chord. You don't have to use it, but you want to know that you can use it so that you can make, structure improvisational melodies and moments with a greater deal of harmonic clarity. I hope that makes some sense.